Hey everybody, real quick. If you need a recap of The Boys Season 3, I've got you covered. Just hit the tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you right to it. Now, Season 4 picks up at Robert Singer's election night headquarters. It's looking really good for Singer and Newman. Even though Singer's going to be the president, we all know who's really calling the shots, and that's Victoria Newman. And because of that, Billy Butcher and the rest of the boys are trying to sneak in and kill Newman. You've got Huey, Mother's Milk, and Starlight hanging out in a surveillance van as they look and see what's going on inside, where you've got Kimiko, Frenchie, and Billy. Kimiko and Frenchie will be the ones that are actually pretending to be workers at the party, but then sneaking up to Victoria Newman's room and trying to kill her. Billy, he's just trying to stand guard and make sure that nobody blocks their exit strategy. A job, by the way, that he didn't really want. What nobody planned on, and that's including Victoria Newman, was Homelander showing up, along with Ryan. He showed up to, quote, show support, but when Victoria Newman sees him, she's not happy. And that's because Homelander is on trial for murder. Having a guy who's in trial for murder at your election night party, well, that's just support you don't really want. Now, at first, the two play nice because they've got their kids there. Homelander's got Ryan, Victoria's got Zoe. But once Victoria tells both kids to go find some ice cream, that's when the conversation gets a lot more serious. Homelander really showed up to tell Victoria Newman, who's still calling the shots even though he's on trial. It's pretty clear he's not worried about it. As those two were having that uncomfortable conversation, Ryan and Zoe did go find ice cream, but what they also found was Billy. Billy saw Ryan walking, and even though he wasn't supposed to, he couldn't resist the urge to try to lure Ryan away from Homelander. He tells Zoe to get lost, and then he has a one-on-one heart-to-heart with Ryan, apologizing and telling him that his mother wouldn't want him with Homelander. But this conversation gets interrupted by Homelander. At first, he kind of laughs off Billy's attempt to try to get Ryan back, but then he notices that Billy's probably got 6 months to live. He's got this large black mass going on in his brain. Billy tries to act like he's unfazed by this, but he is. He's even more phased when Ryan decides to pick Homelander instead of him, and Homelander and Ryan head off. The good news for Billy is the plan so far is going according to plan. Kimiko and Frenchie have made their way into Victoria Newman's suite, and they're doctoring some of her toiletries in order to poison her. But when Zoe was dismissed by Butcher, she headed up to her mom's room. And when she saw Kimiko and Frenchie, she could tell something was off. Even though the security detail was assuring Zoe that everything was okay, Zoe didn't believe it. And the problem for them is Zoe's a soup. She was injected with Compound V by her mother, and now she's got this power where the best way I can describe it is flesh-eating snakes come out of her mouth and devour you. And boy, do they ever. Both security guards finished. And Frenchie and Kimiko were not planning on this. Frenchie tries to plead with Zoe, but Zoe ain't hearing any of it. But before Zoe can attack Frenchie, Kimiko comes to Frenchie's aid. Kimiko, having the ability to just grow limbs back and not really get in pain, does end up losing an arm, but she's able to fight Zoe off long enough for her and Frenchie to escape, along with the help of Starlight, who was watching from their surveillance van and could tell that they needed some backup. When Starlight left the surveillance van, that left Huey all alone. And Victoria Newman found out about that surveillance van and decided to go pay her old friend a little visit. And she catches Huey completely off guard. Victoria doesn't kill Huey. She actually does a trip down memory lane about how she considered him a friend. All the while, though, Huey is trying to unscrew a water bottle because inside that water bottle isn't water, it's acid. They're pretty sure that that is Victoria's downfall, acid. So at the right moment, Huey throws acid all over Victoria Newman, but it does not kill her. It ruins her clothes, and she's pissed off about it, but she still doesn't end up laying a finger on Huey. She's just more annoyed. Oh, and bullets, they don't work either, because Butcher sneaks up from behind Victoria Newman and shoots her in the head, but once again, she's alive and annoyed. In fact, she actually laughs at both of them and says, "How did you get so bad at your jobs?" Victoria then heads back into the party where it looks like she will become the Vice President of the United States, and the next day, Billy and Mother's Milk have to head in the CIA and do a debriefing because all of that was a mission that was sanctioned by Mallory. Although this time, Butcher wasn't in charge, Mother's Milk was. That doesn't stop Butcher from trying to enter the meeting, but Mallory just shuts him down. She wants him nowhere near it. Now, the debriefing is going to be between Mother's Milk, Mallory and the guy who really ordered the hit, Robert Singer. He doesn't want Victoria Newman as his VP. He wants her out of the picture. In order to do that, she needs to die. What he's really concerned with is Victoria Newman's really smart. It's not going to take a rocket scientist to figure out who exactly ordered the hit. So he's worried that once Victoria Newman does find out, it's going to be curtains for him. But what he's really concerned with is a soup ending up having the ultimate power. As Mother's Milk is busy getting dressed down, Butcher is waiting out in the hallway when he runs into an old war buddy. It's a guy named Joe Kessler, and back in the day, these two did covert missions and have story after story after story. Kessler asks Billy what he's up to, and Billy says Homelander. I mean, he killed that guy in broad daylight, and he's about to get away with it. At one point, though, Billy tells Kessler, why do I get a feeling this meeting wasn't just a coincidence? And Kessler kind of nods and says, we need a guy like you. We need somebody before the soups just start rounding us up and putting us in camps. It's something that Billy's certainly going to think about, but he doesn't tell Mother's Milk. When Mother's Milk is done with the meeting, he heads to his ex-wife's place. Because Monique has been having an issue with their daughter. She's been acting up. Janine's been getting in a fight, she's being disrespectful, and Monique thinks it's because she kicked out her ex-boyfriend. And the thing is, Monique doesn't know where the guy went. She wants to get in touch with him because Janine was really fond of him. And while Mother's Milk didn't really like the guy, he does love his daughter. So he tells Monique, I'll find him. He's not going to do it that day, though. He's had a full day. As has Homelander. Not only is he on trial, he still has meetings to attend at Vought Tower. Specifically, one with A-Train, The Deep, and the newest version of Noir, a guy who actually talks. Ashley's running point at this meeting, but Homelander's just in a bad mood. Shocker, I know. They have to discuss the newest members of the Seven, and there are some promising candidates. There's a guy named Wrangler who's a complete loose cannon. When he gets brought up, Ashley and The Deep, they shoot it down because they think the guy's crazy. But when Homelander says, I kind of like him, they suddenly agree. The other candidate is someone named Sista Sage, whose power is she's just the smartest human being in the world. A-Train had a run-in with her back in the day, and he wasn't a huge fan. And the candidates aren't really all that promising. But what's really getting to Homelander is the fact that nobody fights back at anything he says. If he says jump, they say how high. And in this specific case, it's really just Ashley and The Deep. He gets so annoyed, he walks out of the meeting. The next day at the Flatiron Building, the boys have to figure out what they're going to do about Victoria Newman. The acid didn't work, so they're all kind of brainstorming. While they're doing so, Huey gets a phone call from his dad, but he sends it straight to voicemail. And Billy, he just heads off. Billy's been pissing off everybody. They want to kick him out of the group. It's really Huey that's sticking up for him, saying we need him, but Starlight, Mother's Milk, they're like, dude, we don't. He's not really adding much. A little while after Butcher leaves, Huey sees that he has a voicemail, and he loses it. That voicemail was from a hospital telling him that his dad had had a stroke, and now he really regrets sending that call from his dad to voicemail. But Billy didn't just leave to go get food. He left because he had a meeting to attend with Victoria Newman in an abandoned movie store. He called the meeting because he wants to do a you scratch my back, I scratch yours situation. He needs help with getting Ryan away from Homelander. He also knows that Victoria is in between a rock and a hard place with Homelander. And when she tells him, I think I can handle myself, he says, oh, you mean that little virus that you're cooking up at Godalkin? Yeah, we both know that that's not strong enough to kill Homelander yet. There's also the fact that the CIA is working to ruin you. So right now, you need me. She tells Butcher that in order to even consider this, she needs a show of good faith. And that good faith is the file that Huey has about her from the Red River home. After the meeting with Newman, Butcher heads back to the Flatiron Building where everybody's gone, but Huey comes in because he's got to grab some stuff and head back to the hospital. When he sees Butcher, he tells Butcher what's going on with his dad, but Huey's blaming himself for just about everything. And Butcher tries to make him feel better. He gives Huey a big hug, but that hug wasn't just out of compassion. He swiped the CIA access key from Huey so he could get into some files. And he does find Newman's files, and he texts her and says, hey, I got them, but what he actually texts her is far from the files. The next day, Homelander wakes up, and he's been doing this really weird thing. He's been taking pubes and putting them into a jar. They look white. I don't know. But after he does that fun exercise, he thinks about the candidates that were for the Seven, and one really piqued his interest. It was Sista Sage, because she's so smart. He decides to put on a disguise and head out and pay her a visit. She lives in a crappy apartment, but she proves right away to be as smart as they say. He's not happy with the state of the world. He kills people, they cheer. He saves people, they cheer. He wants to leave Ryan with a better world, a, quote, cleansed world. And he asks Sister Sage, how would you go about it? She tells him that every great democracy fails. The people will tear it down. They just need to be nudged a little bit. And then he comes in and saves the day. He then asks her to join the Seven. She says no, but he makes a pretty compelling case about how she's wasting her talents in this apartment. But more importantly, he will actually listen to her ideas because she's so smart. So that she agrees to, and they get to work on a plan on that nudging she referred to. The plan is going to be to trap 3 Homelander fans, then cause a riot, and then dump those fans to make it look like they were killed by Starlight fans. And in a crazy coincidence, one of those crazy Homelander fans is Monique's ex-boyfriend. Mother's Milk, Kimiko, and Frenchie tailed him to just a random alley. They saw him talking to Sister Sage, although they didn't know who she was at the time, and then he, along with the 2 other schmucks, headed into this pizza place where Noir, the Deep, and the A-Train were waiting for him. Now, none of those guys had any idea what Homelander had in store, but Homelander thanked the superfans for their sacrifice. He handed the Deep, Noir, and A-Train baseball bats, and he told them, all right, go cave their heads in. The Deep and Noir got to work. The A-Train was very hesitant. Mother's Milk only found out that something wasn't right when he noticed that Homelander walked out of the building. He was wondering what the hell was he doing there. And the reason why it was such a big surprise is because his verdict was coming out very soon. And you had those 2 warring sides, pro-Homelander folks and the pro-Starlight folks going at each other, waiting for the verdict. When the verdict was announced that he was not guilty, everybody was pretty calm until Sister Sage, who was dressed in all Starlight gear, threw a coffee at one of the Homelander folks, and that started the riot, which allowed the A-Train to dump the bodies and make it look like Starlight folks got out of hand and killed people. This was a really big riot, by the way, one that Mother's Milk, Kimiko, and Frenchie were in attendance for. They tried to help out as much as possible. Frenchie actually saved one guy's life who he knew from his AA group. His name was Colin. He actually got him a job with Starlight, but the 2 always kind of shared a vibe. It was something that Kimiko noticed, and she implored Frenchie to act on. So when Frenchie saved the guy's life, the 2 ended up hooking up and making out right there in front of the riot. This riot, however, is a really, really bad look for Starlight's group and something that the right is just eating up at the moment. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or 2.